join me in welcoming Mr. Raj Gilda, co-founder of Lend a Hand India, who will be moderating this session. A social entrepreneur with a vision for vocational education, Raj has dedicated his career to empowering the youth with practical skills for real-world success. Next, I'd like to call upon Mr. Suresh Babu, Associate Vice President of Corporate Initiatives at ICT Academy, a passionate advocate for skilling and collaboration in education. Welcome, Mr. Babu. Followed by Ms. Neha Chauhan, lead for CSR and social performance at Shell. She's been at the forefront of designing impactful CSR initiatives that empower communities. Welcome, Ms. Chauhan. Next, I'd like to call upon Mr. Ravichandran Rajagopal, Vice Chairman of Sri Vishnu Educational Society, whose work has set a benchmark in preparing students for future challenges. Welcome, Mr. Rajagopal. And last but not the least, I'd like to call upon Ms. Manju Dhasmana, Senior Director of Corporate Social Responsibility at Microsoft India. She leverages technology and philanthropy to create sustainable social impact. So as we look to the future, let's find out, are we ready to gain more than we lose? Yes, Mr. Gilda, the floor is all yours.
Thank you with that, wonderful, cheerful introduction. Since we're talking about job lost and job gained and all that, I wanted to mention about job well done this morning. That as I was coming in, I said, I'm Raj Gilda, and he said, you don't look like one, because I should change my picture, So I think security guard definitely did, his job. But then I was thinking that अगर यहाँ डिजी यात्रा होता तो मुझे अंदर आने ही नहीं मिलता, right? And all that. So on that note, I think we are in the constant flux right now of jobs and otherwise too. And life could not have been more exciting to be in this era now. And starting right away, nowadays, if in a conference on a day, if you don't mention AI 20 times, it's not a valid conference. So I think we've done it 3 times so far. So I'll say 4th time, now as well. Now given, and we'll start with Suresh, Suresh here, that what steps young professionals should, take in this age of, automation and AI and, the jobs getting reshaped as we sort of, speak.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Capgemini, EduBridge, and SRF Foundation for hosting this interesting conference. Thank you, Ravi, for this very, very relevant question as what young professionals should do. I'll take the cue of the keynote address, what was eloquently delivered by the CEO of Capgemini, who touched upon certain interesting aspects. But when I got this question today morning that what should I talk, I've taken note of some 2-3 points which I thought will be very relevant for me to discuss or for me to probably deliberate upon. For me, for the young professionals, I think in this ever-evolving industry, fast transforming digital landscape, there are 3 qualities which I see will be very, very pertinent. One definitely is the mindset, how they look at and how they embrace it. Second is definitely skill, because that is very, very essential especially when you're dealing with machines. Third, of course, how proactive you are, because the keynote was very deliberately delivered, and he made it a point that the revolutions are happening in no time. 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, you're getting new innovations being exhibited, and we need to adopt to it. So what is that in terms of skill, what is that we should do? Probably there are certain skills which machines cannot replace. Skills like creativity, skills like problem solving, skills like adaptability. There are certain skills which the machines can't replace. For example, today AI can analyze the data, but it definitely needs a human creativity to interpret it and come out with an innovative solution. So that way, I think creativity, emotional intelligence, kind of human-centric skills can't be replaced by machines. Second, of course, the communication, how effectively we are communicating, especially when we are working in groups, when we are dealing with the teams. So the communication is one integral part which definitely machines can't replace, at least at this point in time. I don't know what will happen in the future as AI is also getting more and more intelligent. The second thing, of course, to talk about the mindset is perhaps let us not fear the technology, let us embrace it. Because fearing a technology definitely will put you down. Probably we can embrace it and we can start adopting that in our day-to-day. Probably even if you are not in technology background, what you can do is you can go and develop an inquisitivity to understand what ChatGPT is, what robotic process automation is, what is data analytics. This kind of a learning out of the box can help you to excel in any career of your choice. As our keynote speaker rightly pointed out, I think they are in need of employees who can shift jobs and who can take up different roles within the organization. So it becomes very imperative that as a young professional, we should be able to embrace this technology. Of course, the other aspect what I would want to touch upon is, how quickly you are unlearning and relearning. Because we are in an era where we need to constantly learn, unlearn, and relearn. That has become an order of the day. So how you are unlearning and relearning a new technology also plays a very, very pivotal role to make your sustenance in the organization, to make your sustenance in a new role wherever you are asked to work. So putting all this into context, I would say you definitely need to learn some human-centric skills, which can definitely stay intact with you. Number two, the mindset to learn, to understand, to unlearn and relearn is a very, very essential skill in the fast transforming digital landscape. Proactiveness, how quickly you are understanding the changing context and how you are adapting to those changes. That also plays a very, very important role. And there are several platforms today, right? There are platforms like LinkedIn where you can get in touch with peer groups, experts who can help you to guide. Probably there are certain groups who are willing to give you mentorship to the young professionals like you. So probably you can be part of that groups in the LinkedIn. That can definitely help you to probably upskill or to probably understand what really is happening in the market, and that kind of an understanding can help you to learn and grow, embrace, and continue to grow in the system. So that's my initial thought on this, Mr. Ravi.
Thank you, Suresh. I heard this before as well, that as a, we all should embrace technology, not only young people and otherwise, but then sometime I took it too much to the heart, and now if Google Maps shuts down, I cannot reach home anymore, so that has been the, other part of the technology as well. Coming to you, Neha, given there is so much change and given there is so much, in fact, Sanjay also spoke about change in education, what we need, and otherwise. What do we think, the schools and university can do differently to equip students for the jobs of the future, right? And particularly in, say, technology or new skills area which are coming up now.
Thanks. First of all, thank you so much for the organizers for having me here. Second, it's a very special moment for me because I think the last time when I was on this stage was for my own convocation. So the world looks very different now, sitting here. So, a great feeling to be sitting here. Coming to your question, what schools and universities can actually do, and I'll connect to what my colleague just mentioned about the skilling also. I think Education and skilling, they go hand in hand. You cannot have a very strong education system and which is not tilted towards skilling, or the skilling system which is not built on the education system which the country is providing. So it's very important, first and foremost, that, where are our building blocks coming from? So if you compare India with the countries where we want to be, let's say, in terms of formal skilling, such as Germany or Japan, in terms of number, if you see what is different between their education system and our education system is that how early are we starting? Now, the second question is, when you say skilling, what are the skillings are we talking about? Like, are you talking about the basic numeracy, which is also a skill? Soft employment skill, those are all the skills. Logical reasoning, those are all the skills. So at what time what we are pitching are is going to define that, how our schools and universities can prepare people for the jobs we are talking about. Now, the second bit is in terms of within schools, there are two things which I think in the system and which I'll talk about, like I represent Shell here, that what Shell is also doing. There are two aspects. One is the critical thinking and problem solving skills. Second is the transformative technology. Like, are you using the technology for the learning, for the individual, person-specific learning? So every student is at a different learning curve. And now we have come to a time when our technology can actually enable that a very, I'll say, intuitive learning can be done, which is based on so my learning will be different from his learning and his learning, and that's what AI can do for us. So while we are re-emphasizing AI all the time, it is also, I'll say that it is not like change is happening for us for the first time. We are the same generation who has seen Nokia keypads to smartphones. People quickly moved from, people who were repairing smartphones, Nokia phones, to repairing the smartphones. But how fast was this transition? How many people lost job in the process? So is a system actually preparing people? And second thing is, at what level are you preparing your students for? Are we preparing students for blue-collar jobs, new-collar jobs, or white-collar jobs? Or we are talking about a different range altogether? So also, and that's where the term innovation comes in. Why, if we compare the scale of our country vis-a-vis the students we are producing and the number of students who are going out and are part of the best of the innovations, they're not largely those innovations coming from our school setups, our universities. So again, linking it back to STEM, linking it back to critical thinking, problem-solving skill. I'll also talk about one of the programs which we implement, which is called N-Explorers, and we are doing it in the Atal Tinkering Labs with Niti Ayog in a select number of Atal Tinkering Labs. Now, Atal Tinkering Labs, it talks about, let's do the innovation. An Explorer program talks about how to do the innovation. And that how is very important for the younger students to now think about that. Yes, I want to do the change, be the change, but where should I start? If I want the solution, how should I do or think in terms of solution? So Shell is an innovation-driven company, and something what we do use for our own explorations and various R&D, we have converted that into a smaller model, which is for the student, and that's where a lot of thinking circles and filtering techniques, filtering funnel it is called, and other things. So we bring together all of it, that how it can be brought together. So I think those are the two key areas I'll talk about, that one is readiness for the technology, bringing technology in the process of learning, and the second bit is like the whole introducing the problem solving and critical thinking very early in the school level.
Thank you, Neha. Very well, put, and welcome to TIS. Again, I was joking with somebody other day that you cannot download a roti. You have to make a roti. In that, right? But then, how do I use technology there? तो मेरे ऐसा रहा तो I may not even know वो flour में कितना पानी डालना है, you know, what all needs to be done. So if there is a sensor which can sense whether this, you know, atta is moist enough or not, and then I can, you know, get onto my roti making, you know, process. So there is a way in which we can combine something which is very traditional, something which is, you know, very will there to stay, you know, in that with the using our existing technology here. Coming to you, Ravi, you know, so Ravi runs, and as introduction said, you know, a Shri Vishnu Education Society. And last night I got to know that they run dental colleges and, you know, pharmacy and engineering, and with a very, very reasonable fees and otherwise. I was amazed, you know. And I think he also mentioned last night that if you show your conference ID, so please, you know, retain it. You will get a break in the fees for your son or yourself, you know, as well, right? So Ravi, coming to you, and now, you know, you have been running the institution for last many years, and of course, the, you know, the success of any educational institution is known on the basis of placement, kitna package mila, right? And all that. So given, you know, given that, like, what skills, you know, are being demanded from the employers now, right? As they're coming to the campus, and you must have seen, you know, most variety of them over the number of years. Have you seen the demand made by the employers, you know, shifting? Thank you.
Thank you, Raj. And good morning to everyone. And, you know, as Neha said, I also have a special moment here, because I was sitting there and my niece was graduating here. So it's definitely feels special to be in a convention center like this. Now, getting back to what Raj has asked, I would like to rephrase Raj's question in terms of what has changed in the business environment that is driving these skill changes.
I think he's like a politician, you know, he's going to answer whatever he wants to by rephrasing my question. I'm sorry.
So the thing is, because I want to be relevant in terms of what we discuss in the panel, so I have noted down something that, as Sanjay had mentioned, now, new and next. So the way it goes is, first is everybody wants to do automation of everything. So obviously, when you do automation of everything, there is a new skill set. There is new phrases like Industry 4.0. You also want to kind of customize everything as a consumer. So then you get into new technologies like 3D printing. Then you also want to look at learning models. So thanks to COVID, everything has gone, I would say, digital, but more importantly, hybrid, including corporate you know, board meetings. We can be anywhere in the world and still have a board meeting with the chairman of the board being virtual. So the shareholders don't like it. So therefore, it is a very, very, what skills are, it is only driven by what the business environment is all about in terms of change. So if I look at, in fact, I was usually, when I'm in college, the one thing that you do to learn from what's happening in the environment of academics is you sit with your students. So most of the time I sit with students in their dining area and then have a chat. And what caught me off guard was one of the recent conversations I had with a student, and I said, "What's your GPA?" So he said, "I'm 9.8. So I'm sure your faculty must be doing a good job." He said, "No, sir, I don't attend classes. I go to the library." "Then how do you learn?" He says, "I break up my concepts into 10-minute YouTubes, which I go to the YouTube. I get the best YouTube lecture, and then I crack it." "Then what motivates you to come to the college?" He said, "Sir, it's compulsory attendance." And so then I said, "What is interesting?" "Okay, all this is fine. What is interesting?" He says, "I attend labs where some of the faculty are doing something which is very current and relevant to me, because I know that is what is going to get me the next skill." And therefore, it dawned on me that I need to kind of look at these things very differently, because today's learners have changed. And therefore, knowledge is already, what I'm trying to get at is, knowledge is already democratized in a digital world. So there is nothing that you can do, because disruption is already happening, but we don't want to accept it. But what can be done differently is, as Sanjay mentioned in the morning, deep domain expertise and functional knowledge. A lot of soft skills. It could be communication, it is not just about the language of English, but it is just the ability to articulate and express your ideas. And as Sanjay mentioned, confidence. So these have become very dominating mindsets. So I would say the change is the mindset itself and nothing different. So skills are only, like in a project you talk about tasks, but you have to look at the larger objective and goal of the project that you are trying to accomplish. So my thing in this changing job market is mindset changes both from the learner's perspective and from the teacher's perspective. And that can happen only if you drive things very honestly from the top, and you need to create the facilities. So what we try to do differently is, and I'm sure even TIS and all these institutions are doing, they have created now teaching learning centers, which are very different because they need to dynamically address what are the learners' requirements to be engaged, and how does the teacher deliver content to engage with the learner, and how updated is the teacher. Because most of the time, let's accept a fact, when Sanjay mentioned that only 15% or 16% is employable. The problem is from the academic institution side, where we are just cocooned in terms of a very rigid academic environment where it is all about grading and nothing about learning. And that, I think, is a disruption that we are definitely seeing going forward. And the world of AI is making that possible. Thank you, Raj.
So Ravi, I think, I like a follow question there, because I think everybody comes and speaks about education, ko ye hona chahiye, education ko hona chahiye, and putting everything on that. And I always wonder for the doers like you who are actually imparting education. Like on one hand, you have to go by the UGC guidelines, you have to go by, variety of things which are there, and it's a slow moving process. On the other hand, the student demands or the employee demands are changing on a daily basis, right? And you have to survive, right? So financially sustainable yourself as well, right? In the whole, or your society. So how do you balance between all these competing, factors here?
I think you need to kind of look at it more practically, because as you rightly said, there's a lot of schemes that the government is giving as freebies. And obviously with that environment, you can lose your sanity. But what is really important is, what is the goal of why you have embarked in this journey of education? Because all of us have a purpose. All of us want to give something. And I think as long as you have a positive mindset in terms of achieving those goals and be consistent at it, that's what drives you. And that's what gets you far. And it doesn't matter, you can be a rural institution, you can be a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 institution, but the goals that you set for yourself can motivate others. And that's the belief on which we run.
Thank you. Thank you. So I think, coming to you, Manju, now, there's the internship schemes now, and other things to even lend a hand in India. We ourselves have been doing internship for grade 11th and 12th students with local employers near your school, or there is a Pradhan Mantri internship yojana now. BJP is back in the government, so Chief Minister internship also is launched in in Maharashtra as well. Given such things and otherwise, which can be inherent part of the corporate policy, how can company assist youth in acquiring the skills which are needed, right, for tomorrow's job and otherwise too? And I always get little, concern is कि आज AI है, कल blockchain रहेगा, परसों machine learning. What all I keep running, behind, right? I need an employer like Microsoft or whoever. How can they help me to keep up with the demands which are there?
Thanks, Raj. I think, first, I'm not an expert. I think there are more people who know about this subject here. So I'm also going to be a little random in my comments, mostly coming from just my own experience. I think first thing that I want to emphasize, and maybe, like I'm very staunch believer in this, that it's not just for companies to do good by helping people stay relevant, right? I think it's a business imperative for them. So I think Sanjay spoke about we have to be the global talent hub. Now, who benefits from that global talent hub? It is corporates and companies, right? So it is their foremost responsibility. So I think one thing I want to really clear that out. I'm from corporate. I might get lynched, but it is an important part. Often we look at government and civil society, but I think we're equal partner in that. So that's the first thing I want to say. I think if I look at what can companies do, for me, the first one is, I think Sanjay referred to that. He says most people are not employable. And that education systems, curriculums have to be relevant. But it's so hard for education systems to move at the pace of technology, right? Students move faster than the education system, right? But here is where companies can really bring their might and their knowledge and their experience, right? Working on collaborative projects with government educational institutes, with civil society, to look ahead and say, okay, what's going to be needed over the next 2 years, and investing. Just put your money and put some skin in the game. Work closely with these educational institutes. We do that at Microsoft, but we can, of course, scale up to ensure that the curriculum is relevant to the jobs for tomorrow. So I think I would say that that's something that we would advocate for. We can call it systemic change, you can call it an education program, but do that. I think the second thing is, Sanjay referred to that again. I think he took all my points, so I'm just going to repeat what Sanjay said. One is, how are they looking at building an inclusive workforce? And I think that's really where, like, creating programs which are allowing opportunities for either marginalized group, for women, persons with disability, because you cannot become a global talent hub if most of your talent is really just coming from cities, right? And you cannot rely on market forces to ensure that tier 2 and tier 3 students will have the same opportunity as a city person will have. So ensuring that you have those innovative strategies that are giving opportunity. And internship and apprenticeships are a really good way to go. Very, very important way to go. So I think that's the second one. I think the third for me, I have many points, but I want to focus on this one, Raj, so I'll talk about this. So if you all look at this slide, and if you look at the icon that's there, you see a neural network. Now, if India has to become a global hub, and we have to ensure, all of us, that young people have the right opportunity, no one can do it alone. And I'm not talking about alliance, Raj, or, like alliances, 2-3 companies come together, they co-create program. What I'm talking about, really thinking through, what does a young person need? So Sanjay referred that we should not focus on one sector. New roles are new skills are required. We're talking about new technologies are coming in. How does a young person who's starting at the beginning, how do we support them across this entire talent hub? By creating a network. So thinking about what's that young person's journey, and you don't actually have to build an alliance, but you just have to work across in a way that if this young person wants to move to another sector, you've done something in that sector which can help that person move. So think about it like a passport, and you can use that passport that enables you to go across. So creating that neural network, and I think companies collaborating with each other is super critical. I don't have an answer to how to do it. I would really like to do it. So if any of you have an answer, would like to come and partner with us and tell me how we can do that, that'll be phenomenal, I think.
Thank you, Manju. And I think, talking about the industry, and yesterday also we touched upon it briefly, that with National Education Policy 2020 and what is coming down the pipeline, I think it is throwing a huge opportunity for academia and the industry to work, together. Like I mentioned that for preparing the finance curriculum, we are working with Bajaj Finserv. For preparing the agriculture, we are working with BIF. I see Sagrika here. So for preparing coding, we would love to work with SAP, and this is my way to pressurize her, and all. But what I'm jokes apart, what I meant was that these are the education reforms which are coming down the pipeline in upcoming, years to come. is going to throw a huge opportunity for industry and academia to work together. There are initiatives like HCL Tech B, which is taking trainees after 12th and otherwise too, and that is what we are going to need it, much more going forward now. Now, given the time which is left, I'll ask some, questions. 1 minute mein answer dena hai, so that we can leave some time for the, audience to ask some tough questions as well. So please think about that as we go through the, round of questions here. So Suresh, I think, how critical is adaptability? Everybody spoke, even the host spoke about adaptability, लेकिन वो बाजार में तो मिलता नहीं है ना. I cannot order on Zepto कि 10 मिनट में ला दो मुझे, right? Adaptability. So what does one do about it? How do I develop it?
For me, I think adaptability is non-negotiable. We need to adapt to changes. There is no other option left. Perhaps we should keep our eyes and ears open. We need to understand what all technologies which are catching up. A couple of weeks back, I was in Hyderabad attending a gaming conference, which was attended by close to around 25,000 game developers. They are talking about 22 million jobs to be created by 2030. Last week, I was attending one of the events with the Logistics Sector Council, and they're talking about close to around 11 million jobs to be created by 2030. There is AVGC, Audio Visual Gaming and Comics, which is catching up. There is ESTM, Electronic System Design and Manufacturing, which is again a booming sector. But are the young professionals even aware of it? What is happening in the market? Are we confined to certain standards? Are we not understanding the real world around, how it is evolving? Everyone is thinking about the jobs being taken up by the machines, but at the same time, the jobs are also getting created. That's what the World Economic Forum report says. 90 million new jobs are going to be created. Are we ready for it? The entire gaming conference, many gamers came to me and told me that you are advocate for industry-institute interaction. Why not you introduce gaming as a course to the students? Why nobody is looking at gaming as a profession? So I think something which is happening around us need to be understood well, because if not, we'll lose the race. Second, adaptability is definitely non-negotiable. We need to keep adapting to this changing dynamics. As Mr. Sanjay rightly pointed out in his keynote, even if you work for an organization, they expect you to explore out of the box, and only if you prove you'll stay, if you stay relevant only, they will even hold you back in that job. So that's the kind of a trend which is prevailing. The world is moving very, very fast. The newer domains, newer skill zones are getting explored, and we need to be ready for it. That's what is my perspective on this.
Thanks. Thank you, Suresh. Neha, off the cuff question here, based on what he just responded and what you said earlier about Shell focusing on exploration and, very rightly, literally and figuratively, as well. How does adaptability become part of the ATLs, other things which you are working on, right? Because I think that is so critical to develop it right from the young age.
I think it will come back to, coming back to whether we are able to find the right solution. So quickly, it's not like everybody, I think, in the room knows that India entered the U dividend in 2005, will be at its peak in 2030, and eventually after 2055 onwards, we will get into that aging society curve also. So we have to prepare a society which is young right now, creating innovations. We have to be ready and prepare a society which is ready for the time which is to come, where the people stay in job for the longer time, the innovations are happening. Now there are few sectors, while there are new jobs coming in, there are certain sectors which will directly get impacted, which is anything related to automation where it will come in, digitization where it will come, and the energy transition. Now I think EV is a common sight in most of the places. I represent from the energy sector, so I will also talk a little more about, connecting, how that comes in. So if you see, again, as Suresh said, that 3.4 million jobs new green jobs will come in. Now, where are these jobs coming in? They're again coming in the green sector, which could be green construction. It could be your EVs. It could be, sustainable textiles. But linking back to what I said, it is happening at the school level and like where and how we are implementing. The good part about programs like Atal Tinkering is that, the location of this, and which ties back to what Manju said, that, let's move away from the capitals. So why she didn't say this, but I'm coming to the tier 2 and tier 3, like why it is important to go far off. And so there are a couple of things which is important right now. One is the same, which I think most of the colleagues have already said. One, that is, don't reinvent the wheel. I think our policies are, what we need to do is very clear now. It's very tempting for, I think, most of the entities, whether it is corporate, NGOs, other partners, to do something short term which brings us a lot of visibility. Do not do that. Figure out that where in the larger scheme of things, which is already everything is well planned, where your scheme of things is fixing in. Second is, it is again, like, I think, and I can more boldly say in place like this that, we also hold a responsibility to do the right thing. At times you will see where the money is coming or the funding is coming to do projects or interventions which are closer to the capitals and not like focusing in the location where it should be. I think that's where role of people like who are in the room comes in to give the pushback that, this is where the need is. So do the intervention in those areas. So, and that's where the whole thing about tying up, like where exactly people who are not getting a natural access to the change which is happening is where we should be present and these conversations should be happening. Third is, are the work which we are doing and the projects which we are, interventions we are doing and the people who are coming in and learning, what are you leaving behind? So whether these are interventions like, with Atal Tinkering Labs, or it is intervention with any institutes which are in far off locations, what are your projects leaving behind? Is it building the capacity of the teachers? Is it building the capacity of the ecosystem? Are there infrastructure development which is happening, which is beyond what government is already doing and is adding value? That, and I think finally my last point will be hands-on skills. And that's where I think people who are representing here on the panel and other people who have spoken, the role comes in, and like schemes like PM internship schemes and all, I think they should be welcomed with open hearts, because that's where I think the need is. Open your doors and open your spaces for people to come in and learn hands-on. And that's where the skilling will come. Skilling is not going to come through textbook. And that's where projects like N-Explorers, which are doing problem solving, critical thinking, that they are not just teaching you, they're just leaving you out there that find the solution and we help you in structuring how the solution should come.
Thanks, Neha. Ravi, coming to you, and this is again off the cuff, question. Last night you mentioned that you're in the process of setting up a deemed university, right, and all that. So how does that work into the whole higher education reforms which are coming now? Quickly, we don't have much time, but I wanted to really, because that is something very interesting.
So that's, thank you, Raj. Actually, the one question Manju was talking about is how corporates, various programs integrate into the, assessment of the student. And I think the reason why deemed university is of primary importance is because of ability to be flexible in designing your curriculum. And there is something called academic bank of credits. So everything will come into it. And fortunately, the government has been moving in that direction. But it's a double-edged sword. You want the best students, they will come only through the government system. People who have the hunger to learn. So if you go to a deemed university, you need to be a brand, and it takes you many years. So it kind of, there is a dilly-dallying. So that's why it's such an important question. But given all the facts, I think the responsibility of skilling comes only when you are able to have flexibility, and that's why you need to go there. And also, as Neha mentioned, the problem-solving abilities will come only when you have higher order thinking. And today you're having GCCs, for example, they have come to India. Why have they come to India and not outsourced anything? Because the better part of their higher order thinking is what they want to bring into India. and build that capability in the manpower. So, which means you cannot have the regular route learning in a schooling system, but start getting into problem solving. And I think that will drive the next change because the corporates are already requiring that change. And that's how I would like to look at it.
Thanks, Ravi. And Manju, no off-the-cuff question for you. Any closing thoughts you have?
Well, I have 20 seconds, so as I can see the clock ticking. So again, as I said, I'm not an expert, so I can make any random comment, okay? One thing I would say is that almost all of us are working on skilling programs, and I visit a lot of centers, I get an opportunity to meet a lot of nonprofits. And I see that even as Microsoft employee, right? So learning and development is a key part of my KPI. I often don't do it, right, myself. And I try to think about why. I think one thing, Raj, I want to leave that as my last comment is, let's not take the fun and learning out of the whole process, right? Yes, we want to get into job. Yes, we want to put young people into jobs, but the whole idea of skills is for you to interact with new content, for you to use it to develop yourself. I remember, Sajeev is not here, many years back, almost a decade back, we used to do a skills program with them, which was about digital literacy. But we used to do something called a gossip circle of empowerment, where it was a debate between men and women, and these were from rural areas, where they were questioning what the gender positioning that they had in their villages or their household. I think the young people learned more from that session than all the digital skilling that we were giving them. So let's keep that at the core center. We want people to think it's fun learning, right? Then that would be my last comment. Let's keep that.
I think wonderful thought, to part with. We'll probably have a time for one question. So any burning question which somebody has, please raise your hand and we'll get it to you. I can't see. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yes. Please hold get the video.
My question is, so there is, when you talk about skills, you talk about a plethora of skills, okay? And, and you would see this generation actually moving sectors very rapidly. So it's not as if they will kind of get into technology and they will stay with technology. That was the forte of our generation. I started with one organization and pretty much retired with that. Now, one of the worries I have when I actually, go to a lot of conferences, interact with a lot of people, is that not much discussion is happening around the foundational skills. And I think, if I was in your shoes, I would actually spend years in terms of inculcating foundation skills instead of trying to add layers of additional skills on top of that. This is a very smart generation. They, and the very fact that you've democratized, so much of information which is available online, these guys will find their way. I think we really don't need to spoon feed them. We still need to be spoon fed, not them. It's the fundamentals of, how things like logical reasoning. Now, look at our generation. We started with C, C++, and now, we're talking about, artificial intelligence and machine learning. But if you see people at the top, they still come from the C, C++ generation. How they have adapted? They've adapted because their foundation skills are very strong. So, any comments on that?
I can take that. So, a brilliant question, so two things on that, I think one is, as I said, let's not reinvent the wheel. So if you get into the national education policy, the pivot of national education policy is sitting on, let's strengthen what we have and then identify, so whether it's foundation skills and then adding STEM and other experiential learning and everything into it. So first is that part of it. Second is, let's also be cognizant that, India is not exactly what we see on social media and the students we interact with. So there is a larger group right now who is still struggling to understand, even to know that the world is changing. So that transition, the wave which is coming, they're so far away from it. So while I totally agree that, the current generation is hands down much smarter than us, but there are still a larger cohort of younger generation which requires more, if not, I think hand-holding is not the right word, but the right visibility of what's happening and the right assets and, access to the right tools that, this is there. And because their systems are so inadequate right now, when you see the infrastructure and everything else, that's where I think everything becomes very important, because everybody has to chip in to bring, the change which we are talking about.
So thank you, and I would like to also mention that Manju in a closing remark mentioned about gender, and I think that's a perfect segue for a video clip I wanted to show, in that. So can we play the video clip 1, please?
It was said that only boys can do this because it is related to electrician field or architecture field or your other fields which are related to only boys. But it's not important that boys can do everything. It's only that we think this. It is our thought, not the fact. So I just want to say to all the parents to please have the girls also, support them. They are not just to marry and prepare the food for their family. They can do everything if you will support them or if you will help them.
So if we help them, what will happen? So can we play the second clip, please?
मेरा नाम वैशाली है। मैं ढाकना गांव की हूँ। मैं अमरावती में इंटरव्यू के लिए आई। पहले तो मुझे डर लगा क्योंकि पहली बार इंटरव्यू था मेरा, तो कुछ समझ में नहीं आ रहा था इंटरव्यू कैसा देना है, सिलेक्ट होगी या ना होगी। तब इंटरव्यू में 2-3 इंटरव्यू हुआ, उसके बाद में एक से इंटरव्यू में मैं सिलेक्ट हो गई। तो अब हम औरंगाबाद जा रहे और मुझे बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है। मैं बहुत खुश हूँ, पहली बार मेरे को जॉब लग गया। आई एम सो हैप्पी।
Anyway, so on that note, you guys have been wonderful. Hopefully, I'll keep my job as a moderator for some other event as well. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you so much, panelists. Please don't go anywhere. Thank you so much for such a riveting discussion. From navigating challenges of a shifting job market to highlighting the most incredible opportunities for our youth. You've done a fantastic job today. Thank you so much. Everybody, let's give them a big round of applause. And to felicitate them, may I please call upon Mr. Gir Singhania to come up on stage. Thank you, Mr. Gilda. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you, Mr. Babu, for joining us. Thank you, Ms. Chauhan, for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Rajagopal, for your insights. It was great to have you. Thank you so much, Ms. Dhasmana. It was fantastic to have you here. Can we please come in the front for a group photo, everybody? Girish, can you also join us for the group photo, please? Dr. Reddy, can you join us for the picture as well? Do we have Dr. Amina here today? No? We do? Why don't you come in? You should come and sit right in the front so we could get you in some pictures. You should come. Come and sit in the front. It's easy for me to call you. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, panelists. Thank you.